She killed men within a year. 7 men were shot by her in a row. In court, she often cursed at the male judge, even shouted, "I hope your wife and children are raped." Such a cruel and crazy devil should have been executed by everyone. But people's most comments on her were, "His life is too miserable." She was marked with tragedy from birth to death. God didn't let her go for a moment. So what did she experience? The Night of the Dead, by Lawson, a warm story for you. Today we are going to talk about the tragic life of the American serial killer. Time, 1989, location, Florida, USA. On this day, the Florida police received a report that 2 dead people had found a man wrapped in a carpet on 95th Avenue, Florida. So the police rushed to the scene of the crime. And after the identification, the police soon determined the identity of the deceased, 51-year-old Richard, the boss of a local electrical repair company. When he found the body, Richard had been missing for 2 weeks. But because he is usually keen on the bustling, his friends thought he was like the old days. "I don't know where he's gone." But now Richard is suddenly dead. The police immediately investigated Richard's background. And according to the investigation, the police found that Richard had been in prison for nearly 10 years. And this time he was shot and then dumped into the wilderness. The police quickly pointed the suspect's target at a sex worker who had close contact with Richard. Unfortunately, they didn't find the real suspect. 6 months later, the police found a naked man again on the side of the road. 43-year-old construction worker David. He was shot 6 times in a row, and next to his body, he was found to be abandoned by his descendants. In the following months, the police found 5 victims on the side of the road. There was even a police chief among the dead. The case has been murdered 7 times in a row. The police soon realized that they were dealing with a serial killer on the road. And after an investigation of the scene, the police found that in addition to vehicles, criminals often rob victims of their personal belongings. According to Florida law, when pawn shops accept pawns, you need to collect customer information, especially fingerprints. The police raided the pawn shops in Florida at random. Soon the police tracked down the victims' belongings and collected the fingerprints on them. Through fingerprint comparison, a woman named Aileen was found in the criminal database. In January 1991, Aileen was successfully arrested by the police. After the interrogation, Aileen confessed to her crime. But when the police asked her the motive for killing, she was excited. She said she was just trying to protect herself so that those men would use violence too much. She just wanted to make some money. As the saying goes, every pervert demon has a miserable childhood. Aileen is no exception. At the age of 3, her mother abandoned her. She has never seen her father. Because before Aileen was born, her father was sentenced to prison for drunkenness. So she can only live in her grandfather's house. But her grandfather's grandmother is a drunkard. When they were drunk, they asked Aileen to take off her clothes. After that, it was a brutal fight. What's more, her grandfather would still vent his desire on her. At the age of 13, Aileen was pregnant again by her grandfather's friends' bullying. It's just that soon Aileen was kicked out of her grandfather's house. And at this time, she had to live in the woods when she was young. She used her own body to maintain her life. But it was also the days of the cold and desolate living in the woods that made her hate men so much. Because she was not living an easy life during this period. She couldn't accept guests with sexual preferences or special preferences. Most of the time, Aileen's demands were respected. But soon, there was an exception. Richard is a 51-year-old middle-aged man. He opened an electrical store. When Aileen met Richard, Richard ignored Aileen's obstruction, and he was aggressive to her. With Aileen's disobedience, Richard threatened to kill her again and again. In this way, Aileen, who was tortured, could finally bear it. She shot him in anger and terror. And killing is always the first and last time. Aileen, who opened the store, seemed to have found a way to vent her miserable life. It's like a gunshot that can free her. So in the next year, Aileen ended 6 lives. According to Aileen's memories, these people were all forced to fight back when she was threatened with life. But these words were only Aileen's words. The judge, of course, would not forgive her for her miserable life. In this way, Aileen had to receive the death sentence. And when Aileen heard this result, she became very excited. In court, she cursed the judges in court. "I hope your wife and children will be raped." But the law is the law. Killing is killing. In fact, the story ends here. There is only one question that has been hovering in the hearts of those judges. Is the devil born or forced by the environment?